All right, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Jen. I am a part of the Sloan Admissions team, and I'm also joined by my colleagues Alexis and Melissa. And the three of us are here to help answer your questions about the application process for our MBA early admissions offering, which is our deferred option for current college seniors who are interested in pursuing an MBA into the future. So I have a number of slides that I'm going to go through today that will offer some guidance and tips through the application process. However, we're here really to answer your questions. So if you'd like to post your questions in the Q&A, Alexis and Melissa will help answer those behind the scenes, and then we'll do some live Q&A towards the end. All right, so, to start, we thought we'd just kind of, begin by talking a little bit more about what the value of an MBA is and, what we'll cover. So we'll talk a little bit about what an MBA is, who's eligible to apply, some tips for the application process, and then answer your questions. So hopefully if you're joining us today, you know a little bit about an MBA, but an MBA is a Master of Business Administration. It's a graduate degree that gives you, the knowledge, network, and skills to lead teams and companies of any size in any industry. Here at MIT, we offer a 2-year full-time MBA. It's an in-person experience. So what all of that means is your full-time job is being a student for 2 years. You join us for the traditional, starting in September through the academic year. Typically, students have an internship over that middle summer, and then they return for the following year, graduating in June in their second year. So some specifics here about reasons to pursue an MBA. You can kind of read through all of this on your own, but basically, people pursue an MBA for many different reasons: to gain expertise in a specific industry, or to develop, more insight into leadership skills, to take your career to the next level. Many students join the MBA to make a change or to make a pivot in their career. Maybe they started in one industry, they're looking to switch into something else. An MBA is a great tool to help you to make that change. And at MIT, we offer a number of different ways to specialize or focus your learning. So similar to what an undergraduate experience might offer with majors and minors, we have different opportunities to have a track or a certificate. So, to kind of focus your studies in a certain area, but generally it's very flexible. You have a lot of options. There's only 5 core required classes. Those are all completed in the first semester. Then after that, you can pick and choose electives that meet your specific goals. So just one more time, the MBA early admission offering is our opportunity for current college students to pursue an MBA in the future. So if you apply as a college senior or as a graduate student who has not yet had any full-time work experience, then you can gain entrance into a future MBA class. With the requirement that you work for 2 years before matriculating for us to our program. So it's a deferred admission offering. We require 24 months of full-time work experience before you're eligible to matriculate, but you can defer your enrollment 2 to 5 years into the future. So here's a little timeline that kind of details that out for you a bit. So you would apply coming up next week on April 19th. Once you submit an application, we review all of the applications, determine who to invite for interview. So an interview is a required step in the process, but not everybody is invited to interview. So we will conduct interviews on Zoom throughout the month of May, and then offers will be made on June 8th. So you'll hear, if you're admitted, you'll hear from us on June 8th, and then you'll have about 2 months to explore your opportunities, get your questions answered, and you'll have to respond to the offer by August 1st. Then if you accept the offer to join our MBA in the future, you go into this deferral period. Again, that's 2 to 5 years where we're expecting you to be working full time, but we also have a number of opportunities for you to engage with a community of students who we've admitted into this deferral period in previous years. So we hold all different types of primarily virtual events, but networking opportunities for you to kind of build a community of peers within this 2 to 5 years. We'll also offer some programming from faculty, career development office, again, primarily virtual programming to help keep you engaged and informed of the latest things happening at Sloan. And then when it's time for you to decide to matriculate, you begin this sort of, update application process. And so every year over the summer, we'll check in with you, ask you where you're at, if anything's changed, if your contact information needs to be updated. And then after 2 years, the message is a little bit different. It's letting you know that you are now eligible to matriculate. And should this be the year for you, you would need to submit a plan for when you'd like to matriculate in the future. So the logistics are all laid out here, but basically we need to hear from you in the fall prior to the year you plan to matriculate. To know that we need to hold a seat for you in that class. And there's a very streamlined process. You fill out a form, check in with us. We just confirm that you've been working for at least 2 years, and then readmit you to that current MBA cohort. All right, so the benefits of applying through MBA early admission are kind of outlined here, but if now as a college student you think an MBA is in your 5-year plan, this is a great opportunity to secure a seat in a future MBA class. The application process is quite streamlined. You're already, well prepared in terms of, being used to submitting, essays and sitting for an exam. So the requirements are minimal, and it's really designed to be an easy way for you to secure a seat in a future MBA class. The advantage is also to continue to build a network among Sloan students and among other deferred candidates over that 2 to 5 year period, so that when you do matriculate, you'll already have a large community of students from Sloan that you know. The application process, the deadline is coming up next week, April 19th. Everyone who submits an application is reviewed beginning the day after. So really, there's no advantage to applying in advance of the deadline. This is, again, a little bit more detail on who's eligible. We get a lot of questions about eligibility. So the simple answer is if you are still a college student who has not yet received their undergraduate degree, but are about to graduate, if you plan to graduate between now and September, then you are eligible to apply. However, if you're graduating and you plan to go into a multi-year master's program, we would prefer you to apply at the end of the master's program, not now, because really this deferral period is intended for you to get full-time professional experience, not to continue your studies. So you're eligible to apply if you're a college senior about to graduate, or also eligible to apply if you're a graduate student who has gone directly from undergraduate to graduate studies without ever having worked full-time. And that would exclude, any internships or co-op experiences. So lots of specifics here about eligibility. Happy to answer questions if you have them. And then during the application process, we're often asked, what are we evaluating? And so really the short answer is we're evaluating all of the same characteristics that we look at in a traditional MBA candidate. However, the examples that you would be talking about might be from slightly different types of things. So, essentially we're looking at your background and evidence of your past experiences that correlate to different characteristics or competencies that we think make successful Sloan students. And these are things like how well you work in a team, how do you solve problems, are you able to communicate and adapt to a changing environment, how are you able to persuade others without maybe having any managerial exposure or oversight, but how are you able to persuade or gain buy-in? And then also, what is your academic potential? What is your academic horsepower? These are all different characteristics, or we call them competencies, that we're looking to analyze throughout this process. And in fact, all of these competencies kind of fall into 2 different categories. The first is called demonstrated success, and that's really where we're looking at your academic horsepower, so to speak. So your undergraduate studies, your undergraduate GPA, how you've performed academically, your test scores, GMAT or GRE, as well as any additional exposure you've had to maybe quantitative tools or quantitative type work. And then we're looking at another category, which we call personal leadership, or leadership attributes. And this is where, we're looking at more of the softer skills, how you work in a team, how do you communicate, what happens when you need to problem solve. And so those are more behavioral focused. And that's where some of the data that we build on falls from the interview process as well. So when we're scoring these different characteristics, we kind of plot them on an XY axis here. And it's a very data-driven process. You'll see, the people who move forward from the reading to the interview invitation, and then from the interviews to being, admitted to the program, are the ones whose competencies score in this top right quadrant. So you're demonstrating both academic potential as well as leadership attributes. So we analyze this through a number of different components in the application. So I'll kind of go through those quickly right now. So the first is the cover letter. This is sort of our version of an essay. So we're asking you to explain, why are you seeking a place in a future MIT Sloan MBA class? And, you'll see the prompts here. We're looking for you to really give us, what are the highlights from your past? What are the things that you feel most important in terms of the accomplishments you've had to date? So highlight for us a couple of things that you've succeeded at, and then explain a little bit about your path and how coming to join us at MIT Sloan's MBA program is a good logical step in the future. We ask for a resume, and this resume is really designed to be, again, more of like a highlight reel of your past accomplishments. If you're able to quantify any of those accomplishments, that's great as well. So less about a job description, more about accomplishments and highlights from the things that you've been a part of in your past. And we understand you probably have had limited internship experiences. However, we're still interested in seeing what those experiences were. But we're also interested in any extracurricular activities, leadership roles, experience that you've had both within student organizations or outside of the classroom type of organized activities. Oftentimes we see students for the deferred MBA program demonstrate their leadership skills through organizing conferences or competitions or different, club related events. So all of that is important for us to see evidence of. We also have a couple of videos within the application. So the first video is a 1-minute opportunity for you to film a video introducing yourself to your kind of hypothetical future classmates. And you can kind of think of this as something that you would want to combine, but as a complement to your cover letter. So your cover letter might focus a little bit more on more of the professional side of things, and then the video could focus a little bit more on the personal side of things. But really, if you were at a networking event or you were, looking to introduce yourself to someone you wanted to be friends with, how would you introduce yourself? What are some of the things that you think would be important for us to know? Maybe you could share a little bit about where you come from, what's important to you, and then talk a little bit about what you do sort of outside of school or outside of a professional type of setting. And so, what are some of the things that we can't learn from your resume or from your LinkedIn profile? That's kind of how you can think about this simple, selfie style video that we ask you to include. And then we also ask you a second video question that's a little bit more on demand. So this is really designed for us to get a better understanding of your communication skills. A question will pop up on the screen. It will not require any advanced preparation. It could be a question similar to, tell me about your favorite vacation from the past and why. And so we're really just looking to understand how you communicate sort of in a impromptu setting. What are your communication skills like? Are you able to, answer the question in a simple, coherent way? The prompt will show up on the screen, and then you'll have a minute or so before the video goes on, and then you'll respond to the question. So I think this is similar to what many hiring companies are using, but it's really a tool for us to assess communication skill that does not require any advanced preparation. We ask for 2 letters of recommendation. So the letters of recommendation can come from a variety of different individuals. However, we'd prefer to see one from a professional source and one from an academic source. but that's a preference. It's not a requirement. So you are the best judge. You are the best person to determine who's, best positioned to write letters for you. So ideally, one would come, I said, from a professional source. That would be, someone you've worked for in a professional setting, like an internship, or if you've worked on campus through, a more professional role or a research type of role, that person could be a good choice for you. And then the second would be from an academic source. So this is someone who can speak to your academic ability. Obviously, someone you've taken a class with, a faculty member, or even if you've been a teaching assistant or helped in other academic settings, a professor that knows you rather well is a great choice for us. So we're looking for that balance of success, both in the classroom as well as in a professional setting. We do ask for all of your past academic records. So that's transcripts essentially from any courses that you've taken, if you've studied abroad. If those courses are not reflected on your graduating transcript, then we would want to see them, and it's always good for us to see anything that would be relevant to an MBA curriculum. So we do ask you to highlight some of your relevant courses. These are courses that correlate to the different topics that are taught in the core curriculum for MBA. However, we're looking for, all of your past academic records, even if it's for non-degree courses. I think there might be a mention of that somewhere here, but, like I said, a lot of students have done computer programming online, or they've done different certificate programs online. Anything that's relevant for us to see your academic potential is important for us to see. So you can upload all of that here. Test scores are still required. So test scores, meaning a GMAT or a GRE, are an important component in the application process. Again, it's an additional piece of evidence to indicate to us your academic, strength or academic capabilities. However, due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we do offer the chance for you to submit a request for a test waiver should testing be difficult for you based on your situation. So if it's difficult for you to access a test in a safe way due to COVID, you're able to submit a waiver request for that test. There are a lot of test options out there, as well as the online exams, and we have no preference. You can take the traditional in-person exam or the online exam. We accept both, no problem. And the test is a great tool for us to continue to assess your academic potential. And then the final tip we have is really throughout the whole application process, we really want you to be yourself. I know that sounds easier said than done, but our goal is to get to know you, and we want to know about your background, your strengths, your passions, and how all of that matches to the type of community and culture that we offer at MIT Sloan. So take your time as you, complete the different components of the application and try to keep it as authentic as possible. I know there's a lot of temptation to use coaches or consultants to help you throughout the application process, but we really want to hear from you, and we want to make sure that what you're sharing with us is an authentic, representation of who you are. So just one more time as an overview, here's kind of the checklist of materials for the application process: the cover letter, a resume, 2 videos, 2 letters of recommendation, all of your academic records, and a test score. Another bonus I forgot to mention is that anyone applying to the MBA early program does not need to pay an application fee. So it's free to apply. And then the deadline is next week on the 19th. That means that every component of the application, including recommendation letters, are due by end of day on the 19th. And then after that, we'll review applications for a couple weeks, determine who to interview, and then interview invitations will go out in early May and take place throughout the month of May. Also, just to note, if you get invited to interview, you'll be asked to respond to 2 short answer questions in advance of the interview, but they don't take a lot of extra preparation. So I know that there's some questions in the Q&A, but now's the chance to ask as many questions as you have. So if you post your questions in the Q&A, we can read them out loud and get to the questions. So I think Alexis and Melissa might come on to help us some of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we answered a few questions that were individual questions, but we have a few that the group seems to be asking. So I'm happy to take some of these. The first one that was here was, is it possible to decide which year they want to matriculate into MBA early? So as Jen was mentioning, during that deferral period, which is 2 to 5 years of full-time work experience, every year within that period, you'll do what we call a yearly check-in with us. You just fill out a form, let us know kind of where you are in your career, what year you're thinking might be the year for matriculation for you. And then in the actual year that you intend to matriculate is when you'll do a pre-matriculation phone call with us. And so in that phone call, you'll have with myself or Jen, with Melissa, someone else on our team, will just make sure that you've met the minimum work requirement and then walk you through those next steps. So yes, you have full control over when in that matriculation period you'll actually be joining us. All right, I'm just kind of taking these in order here. The next one that I see is about the second video question and how to approach it. Really, it's not anything that you need to do any sort of preparation for. As Jen mentioned, it's just a random prompt and absolutely nothing that you need to prepare for in advance. So you can think of it, maybe it will ask you, what's a recent book that you read or a TV show that you're watching. It's really just to have kind of a communication with us, and it's no advanced preparation there. So don't worry too much about that one. All right, let's see. I see. Lots of questions on the format of the cover letter and what to do there. So in the actual application, there are instructions. The instructions are also on our website. I will get the link on the how to apply page on our website that give you all the instructions for the application. But it is a really addressed to the admissions committee. There's no specific person that you need to address it to, but make sure you're following the instructions. It is a 300-word limit, and we are asking you to seek a place in the future MBA class. So make sure that you're reading those instructions and following them because we are mindful of putting those instructions together. So hopefully that answers the question on content there. Scrolling through, I marked some and Melissa marked some. Oh, this is a good one. We get this one a lot. So for folks that graduated in December of 2022, but they started working in January of 2023, are they eligible to apply? Yes, absolutely. So if you fall within that eligibility window and you started working immediately after graduation, which often happens, you are still eligible to apply for MBA early, even though you've had a couple months of full-time work experience within this year. That's built into our eligibility language. So hopefully that helps. Questions, a lot of questions, actually quite a few on the GMAT and when they need to take the GMAT in order to apply. So the application deadline is April 19th, next week, and you will need to submit an entire application, a complete application, including a GMAT or a GRE score. So if you don't have that score, let's say you're going to get it like a day or so later after the deadline, you could absolutely submit it then. But I did see some people noting that they're not taking it until June or July or August. That would not work. You would need to submit the GMAT or GRE score at the time that your application is being considered. So just make sure that you're thinking about that when you're putting together that application. If you don't have the GMAT or GRE score and you're not planning to take it for a while, you won't have a completed application. So you might no longer be eligible to apply for MBA early. Your other opportunity would be to apply to the traditional 2-year MBA in the year prior to when you want to matriculate. If you don't have the official score, that's totally fine. You'll get, whatever your score was, you can do the unofficial score and type that into the application. You won't actually need to send us any official scores until the time that you're admitted later on in what we call the verification process. I think I answered that one. Perfect. Let's see. Melissa, if there's any that I'm not answering that you think I should answer, let me know. Okay, this one's asking if they can, they volunteered for an NGO for a few years, and they're wondering if they can ask their advisor at the NGO to be the professional recommendation writer. This is a personal decision. You really need to kind of weigh who who you've interacted with, what your experiences have been throughout your internships or volunteer experiences in this case, and see who would best be suited to answer the questions that we ask in a recommendation. Again, I would recommend going into the application itself. We utilize the GMAC Common Letter of Recommendation form, and so there are certain questions that are going to be asked of the recommender. When you look at those questions and think who knows you in the best way possible to answer these questions, that's really going to be your answer there. But if it is this advisor, that could potentially be the recommender. Oh, someone's asking about the test waiver. So as Jen mentioned, this year, due to the ongoing pandemic, we are aware that there are still some places in the world that you cannot access a GMAT or a GRE. We are allowing for a test waiver request to be submitted if you have not taken the GMAT or GRE for COVID-related reasons. And so these are only in areas of the world where COVID is affecting, the ability to get online to take that GMAT or GRE, or affecting your ability to get to a physical location. So we are definitely keeping an eye on that, but thinking that it is a COVID-related reason. If you do have that, you can go to the application, navigate to the test sections of the application, and submit that waiver to be considered. You typically will get an answer or response from our admissions committee within a day or so. All right, let's see. Someone says, as someone who is majoring in an engineering background and my GPA is not as high as others, how will this affect me? So GPA is just one consideration. That's not going to be an end all or be all. There's no cutoffs. There's no, minimums that are needed in order to be considered for admission to MIT Sloan into the MBA program. And so we will look at your entire application. As Jen mentioned, when we talk about, what are we looking for in applicants, we're certainly looking for a number of factors, and it's above and beyond just the GPA. So, how well do you work in teams? So, make sure that you're showcasing other things within your undergraduate career. What did you have successes at in any internships or any extracurricular opportunities, or, where have you succeeded within your classes that you have taken? Those are the types of things that we're looking for within the application. See. Lots of people asking about opportunities to connect with current students. We do have a number of opportunities to connect with current students. If you are admitted to the program, that's something that will kind of come up throughout the deferral period. At this point, this is a tough time of year because a lot of our students are kind of wrapping up final exams. So we don't have any current student focused events in the near future, but if you are admitted, we will have a number of events that we'll be sharing with you in June that will be virtual too. Another question about the test waiver. If they are waived, is there a negative inference? And the answer is absolutely not. No negative inference if you're unable to take the test due to COVID in your area. Let's see. Just trying to answer things. So this person's asking again on reporting out their GMAT scores. You can report your GMAT scores unofficially on your application. That will need to be verified if you are admitted, but you will need to tell us the breakdown of that. So we'll need to know the verbal score and the quantitative score of your GMAT score at the time that you apply. A question about the optional essay and whether or not that's required for all applicants. It is completely optional. The phrase optional is really truthfully there for you if you want to use it, but it is not required by any means. All right, answered that question. Hanit asked if they get accepted to the MBA early program, are they still able to enroll in an MS program? I'm guessing you're speaking about the dual degree program, potentially our LGO program, which allows you to get your MBA and an MS in one of 9 engineering disciplines. You would be able to apply for LGO in the year that you intend to matriculate. And so if you get admission to the MBA early program, we would walk you through that process when you want to apply, but you're not automatically enrolled in that program. You would still need to separately apply and be considered. So the TOEFL is not required. We do not have, neither is the IELTS. So you do not need to submit that as part of your application. Let's see. Some questions about visiting campus. We definitely will have on-campus opportunities to visit during the deferral period. As I mentioned before, this time of year is a tough time of year because student classes are kind of wrapping up and final examinations. So we don't have any on-campus class visits right now, but keep checking back on our website. As soon as we add those back, we absolutely will keep you posted. So again, a lot of people asking about if they can't take their GMAT for 2 more months, can they apply at that time? No, the deadline is April 19th. If you do not have a complete application by that date, you will not be able to apply this year, and your opportunity to apply will be at the time you want to matriculate, so a year prior to when you want to matriculate. Scholarships for MBA earlies. So if you are admitted to the MBA early program, you will not be considered for scholarship or fellowship until the year that you matriculate. So when you actually let us know that you want to matriculate, you'll be considered for any fellowships that are available that year in the round 1 deadline. So you would basically find out in mid-December, the year prior to when you want to matriculate, if you have been awarded a fellowship. Going back to a follow-up question on the person that asked about enrolling in an MS program. So just keep in mind that there's only certain dual degree programs that MIT Sloan MBA program offers. One of those being the LGO program. We also have a dual degree with with HKS. So take a look at the dual degree offerings on our website so you can understand what are opportunities there. You would not be just enrolling in that other program. Now it would still be required that you would apply separately to that program. All right. Someone asks about the second video question, and you have to record it within 60 seconds. And if there's a technical malfunction, do you get a chance to resend it? So in short, the answer is no. You get 60 seconds to prepare for the question and 60 seconds to respond to the question. If for some reason you have some sort of technical malfunction, you can send us an email and we can try to resolve it that way. I will tell you that I feel like I've seen that incredibly rarely over my time at MIT Sloan. We do this for a number of programs, so I really don't think that will happen. All right. Someone asked again about full ride fellowships and scholarships. Every year the fellowship budget changes, so it will just depend on the year in which you matriculate, what our funding looks like for that year. Someone asks about professional aspirations. The cover letter is not a fitting place to expand on this, so where should I do it? We actually don't ask about what you're hoping to do in the long term. Certainly, sometimes people will weave that into their cover letter, into a sentence or two, but we're really looking for your past successes. We think that, past successes on how you handle situations are really indicative of how you'll handle situations in the future. And so as a result of that, we're really not looking for what you're hoping to do, but rather what has gone well in the past. Okay, going back to the video question too, it's directly through the application. You don't need to record it. It's automatically built into the application. So if you have questions specifically, I'd encourage you to reach out to our office, but the video question 2 prompt will appear within the application once you've filled out a majority of the application. From there, you'll be able to click on a link. It will actually be built right into the application itself. You don't need any special software. So if you're still confused or you need help, feel free to reach out to our office and we can walk you through it. All right. Let's see.
Did you answer the one about the integrated reasoning?
I haven't, right? No, you're welcome to take that if you'd like.
How important is the integrated reasoning part of the GMAT for MIT? So, we're interested in looking at all of the results from your exam. However, the integrated reasoning section is probably slightly less important to us than the verbal and the quant section. So if there's an outlier score, it's incredibly low, and the rest of your exam results looked good, then that might be flagged for us. But the main thing is to focus on the general verbal and quant sections of either GMAT or GRE.
Awesome. I can say that the percentage, someone asked about the percentage of students invited to interview. This changes year over year. It really just depends on our applicant pool. So I can't give you a specific answer on that one. But we are excited to meet as many strong qualified candidates as possible during the interview period. Okay, this is another good question. Jen, if you want to take this on, are MBA early students able to integrate into the MIT student organizations during their deferral period?
So you're able to join some of the conferences that some of the clubs offer, but you would not be an active participant or an active member until you matriculate as a student. However, a lot of the clubs focus on different industry-related conferences that are open to greater members of the MIT community, and we would offer you the option to join those conferences.
Great. All right, someone has, yeah.
If you've taken multiple calculus courses, we're really just looking for the calculus 1, but you can use any calculus course that you've taken to correlate with a relevant course coursework section in the application. How long does it take to complete the application from scratch? Is it too late to apply for this period? It depends on how, focused you are, but I don't think it takes that long to fill out the application requirements, but you do need to make sure you give your recommenders enough notice. So we're just over a week out. I think it's perfectly realistic to put an application together as long as you have a GMAT or a GRE exam either scheduled or have already taken it. But the application itself shouldn't take too long to put together, maybe a couple hours.
Yep.
I think that this question, can we apply to the LGO program after getting deferred admission? So the Leaders for Global Operations program is our joint degree with engineering. They don't offer a deferred admission offering, but if you're admitted through our deferred MBA offering in the year that you want to matriculate, you can submit an abbreviated application to LGO to be considered for the joint degree with engineering. So you don't apply for that now, you would apply for that in the year you're matriculating. I think you've answered these already for a student interested.
Yeah.
We have students who are working in all different aspects of sustainability. Certainly, the student club we have, that's the retail club, has done some project work on kind of the sustainable or the lack of sustainability in the fashion industry and that supply chain. And there's been some projects related to that in sustainability lab class as well. This is a very specific question, but I think you could maybe get a little bit more information about it by connecting with students in the retail club.
There've been a lot of questions, Jen, and I'm happy to take this on just generally like the relevant coursework section. So the relevant coursework section is intended to talk about your undergraduate career, graduate studies if you're a graduate student. So not talking about anything in high school unless the exception there is it was an advanced placement class. If it was an advanced placement class that you got college credit for, you can indicate that on the relevant coursework section and then put AP as part of your class, what the class was itself. Otherwise, no high school classes. You don't need to have taken all of those classes. We're just asking to have an understanding of what your quantitative background was. So if you have nothing for calculus, please leave that blank. If you have nothing for organizational behavior, please leave that blank. Only indicate it if you've actually taken it in college.
Mm-hmm. Action Labs have a whole section on the website, Action Learning at MIT Sloan. There's all different types of project examples and details on the Action Learning section of the website. Interviews will be conducted online, so everything is over Zoom for the interviews. During the deferral period, unfortunately, you are not able to access career development resources. But we do hold a couple of different webinars with representatives from the Career Development Office, some tips and tricks for handling a LinkedIn profile. What are some of the things to think about as you're approaching the time you'd like to matriculate in the MBA to be best positioned and best prepared to maximize, the resources that we offer. But you would not get access to a career advisor until you matriculate as a full-time student. I think a lot of these we've answered already.
Yeah.
Yeah, if your study abroad was transferred and it's reflected on your primary transcript, you don't need another transcript. What is an ideal candidate for MIT? What would you like to see come through in the application? So what makes us beam enthusiastically as we read an application? We want to see that you've been succeeding at whatever it is you've chosen to do, that you've been succeeding in a collaborative way, that you can demonstrate that you work well with groups, that you have exposure to things that are, beyond just what your major is in, that you have demonstrated intellectual curiosity, that you have academic success, and that you've, done a little bit of research and you can, identify with, the culture and the community at MIT and how coming to study at our MBA program is a good match for you in the future. All right. I think we've pretty much answered all of this. Let's see if there's.
We have. I would just recommend people read through the instructions. I think a lot of these are covered when you're actually in the application itself. A lot of these are detailed out in the application. If you have any issues as you're filling out the application, yes, absolutely reach out to us. We're happy to help.
Yep. Here's the email.
Right on the screen.
Perfect.
All right. That sounds great.
Thanks, everyone. This was great. Yep, we're always happy to answer any questions. Send us an email. There's other previously recorded events about early on the website, so you can access those as well. And we are excited to read your applications starting next week.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Alexis. It's great.
Bye.
Bye.